There we go. So if you're watching the recording, and you have follow-up questions after class, feel free to ask me, ask Sarah, whatever you need to help you with your cooking journey. So Virtual Teaching Kitchen offers free nutrition education focused culinary classes as a way to gather people in the kitchens together. So this is in your kitchen and this is in our kitchens, or I'm in my office right now. But again, we are not focusing on like super fancy ingredients. We are focusing on simple whole foods and also how to have more fun in the kitchen. I mean, Sarah, you'll learn, is so fun to be around. We're just going to be chatting the whole time. So you guys can join in our chat. And if you see in the chat, I will drop it in again. Sarah just launched a new cookbook, Pizza, 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 right here. And 3 lucky participants are going to be winning a copy of Pizza, Pizza, Pizza. I just love saying it, pizza, pizza, pizza. And I'm going to drop in that QR code again into the chat. So if you do want to purchase it, I think this would be a really fun like gift for people too, because I love making pizza. We typically make pizza almost every Friday. So I'm going to stop chatting right now, but if you have any questions, I'm going to be managing the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask us directly. We're here to have a good time. We're here to make some good pizza, and I'll let Sarah introduce herself and you're going to take it away.
Yay. I love everything you just said, especially all the parts about cooking and making it fun, because honestly, that's kind of why I went from being a dietitian, which I still am, but working primarily as a dietitian into more of a culinary space, because I realized that being a dietitian, maybe for some people is fun, but it just wasn't really that fun for me, because what I didn't know about myself is that kind of more creative. I'm kind of more goofy. I'm kind of more silly. It's hard for me to be serious. So it just wasn't a good fit for me. And that's fine. Like, it took me
That's
through
why we are friends.
That's why we're friends. That's right. Like, it's for some people and I appreciate them and I love them dearly. Like, I have so many friends that are excellent dietitians, and it's just not that clinical kind of more uh sciencey people. That's their jam. It's just not mine. So I knew that food was my passion, and that I knew I could teach people kind of inadvertently about nutrition through cooking. And so that's kind of where my path has led me. So like Julie said, or maybe you weren't here yet, but I am based in Chicago, Illinois, and I work primarily as right now as a recipe developer and food photographer. And I work mostly on the editorial side of things, so freelancing, and I love it. But like Julie also said, I just fancy outfit alert here I have on. These are my fancy shorts and my clogs. So I got dressed up for you. You're welcome. But I just wrote this book. It's all about pizza. It is called Pizza, Pizza, Pizza. Yes, it is. So you just go on Amazon. I included that QR code and you can get your copy. Now, I'm not trying to like hawk my book, because like that's not who I am. But I will say the front copy, which you can't see as I'm thumbing through it, so that's helpful. But the front copy is all about dough and my tips for making it and all the information you could possibly need on making pizza in your regular oven.
I
So
think
I
that's
want
the biggest challenge for people at home.
yes,
Because they
I
think they
agree.
need a pizza oven or those fancy like uni things. If you have those,
Yeah.
great. That's fantastic. But
Yeah,
I mean, I just have a plain old oven.
totally. I mean, if I could, I would have like 4 pizza ovens and they'd be burning all day long, and I would just be slinging pizzas in it and selling it out my door, because that's how much I love it. But I have a tiny apartment that has a tiny outdoor space, and there's no way an uni is fitting out there ever, unless they make a mini version that's safe to put on, a wood deck, which I'm sure they're not thinking about at all. And that's fine. That's why I did my research long before YouTube. So I'm dating myself, but uh, I've been working on this book for a long time, even before I knew I was working on this book, because I went to the internet years upon years ago and I learned everything there was to know about making pizza in my home oven, because I loved making dough and I loved everything about pizza. And I was like, I want to do that myself because I know I can do that. So that leads me to my first step. So if you're cooking along, or even if you're just taking notes, the first thing you want to do is set up your oven so that you have either a pizza steel, a pizza stone, or an upside down baking sheet inside of it. Now,
Why upside down?
well, that just helps move it around the baking
Gotcha.
sheet. So it's flat, you know, if you're trying to get out the pizza, because what you're going to do is then you're going to turn on your oven and it's going to get blazing hot. And so you want it to be easy for you to put a pizza on that sheet pan and then also pull it off. So if you have that
Yeah.
lip, it's going to be a little harder. That's the only reason. If you don't mind an extra challenge, you know, you keep it right side up, Julie. See ya. Let me know how that goes.
So pizza steel, a stone, or even just a regular old baking sheet work.
That's right. So if you don't have either of those things, but honestly, those are the only two things I recommend you buy. Some people are like, oh, should I buy one thing? If you're gonna buy one thing, buy a baking steel. It's more expensive than a stone, but you're gonna get better results from it. A stone is good too. The steel just holds heat longer, and that means you're gonna get like a beautiful crust. And it's not going to change temperature as soon as you launch it into the oven. So there tend to be like double the price of a stone, but you can actually use it. I leave mine in my
I
oven.
mean, I think I'm gonna have to invest because we have a stone right now. So
Yes,
you're
you will
convincing me.
see, you will see a huge difference. Like it's made all the difference for me and I love it. Now you can still, don't make it, you can still use that stone. You just have to make sure your oven is really hot, which is step two. Step two is an hour, 45 minutes minimum before you decide you want to make pizza. You got to turn your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot. And that's annoying, perhaps to some people. But is it really take any time out of your life to set an oven to 500 degrees? No, it surely doesn't. So you just go over there, you hit the buttons to 500 and you close the door and you say, I'll see you in about an hour. That's all I gotta do.
So if you're cooking along, this is your sign to preheat your oven.
That's what I'm saying to you. Turn on your oven right now, get it blazing hot. Yay. The reason is you need that extra time for your stone or your steel to get all that heat. If you tried to cook it as soon as your oven goes beep, 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 I'm ready, it's 500, that stone or that steel are not hot enough. You're trying to replicate one of those pizza ovens, and those get to temperatures of like 700 degrees. Now, your oven will never get to that temperature, but that steel and that stone will absorb a lot of heat so that they'll transfer that heat quickly and efficiently to your pizza. But it needs time to absorb that heat, which is why you need 45 minutes to an hour. So there is a method to the madness. That's what I'm saying. But in good news, before we make the dough, which you'll see here, I'll move this stuff out of the way. Okay. We're going to make the pizza that I believe Julie shared. I know she shared, so I don't have to say believe because I know she did. We're going to make my favorite. People are like, do you have a favorite one? And most people are like, oh no, everything's my favorite. Well, no, not everything is my favorite. I have a favorite. I have a favorite, and it's this one. It's the roasted tomato margarita. It's my favorite because somehow, some way, these beautiful tomatoes, even if they're not beautiful, become a delicious caramelized pot of goodness when you roast them. And the other thing that's great is that you can roast them in this oven while it's preheating. So you're not really wasting your time or the oven's time. You're making use of your oven. It's a beautiful thing. So this is just a pint of cherry tomatoes. Now, some people are going to be like, those are grape tomatoes, and they are. So you can use a pint of grape tomatoes. You can even use a mishmash. Is that right? Mishmash?
Mishmash.
Mishmash.
The
It
word.
sounded weird when I said it. Mishmash. Types of tomatoes. So like if you have a garden and you just want to throw some tomatoes in your pan, what is this thing? Dish, then that's totally fine too. Now, one thing is you must play with them for just a second because like that's just fun. So I don't know why I'm doing that, but it really is fun, like to feel all the tomatoes in one little container. Doesn't matter about the container. If you don't have an oval container, if it's not a Staub or a La Crusade, doesn't matter. You can even put this in some foil and shove it in there too. So the vessel here doesn't matter as long as it's containing your tomatoes. It should absolutely still contain your tomatoes and be safe for a hot oven. So I put my pint of tomatoes in. I put in some olive oil. Now I have amounts in the book, but honestly, like it doesn't matter. Just
Measure
cover
with
those
your heart.
bottom ones. What'd you say?
I always say measure with your heart.
Oh, that is beautiful. Measure with your heart.
But that's especially for like chocolate chips though. Like in a chocolate chip cookie recipe, really measure with your heart.
Yes, for sure. Your heart is full. It should be it should be very full of chocolate. So once you've got them doused a little bit, that looks good. You can't go wrong. Even if you don't do enough, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then usually like I do about a half teaspoon of kosher salt. You could do no salt. So if you're someone and you're watching your sodium, you don't need to even add the salt. These are so delicious, whatever. So you can season it at the end. If you taste one and you're like, I could benefit from some salt, then you can do it then. Black pepper, because that's awesome. And you should definitely use freshly grated black pepper because it's way better. And it's fun. Like, what's not fun about this? That's just fun. So remember, we're having fun, right, Julie? It's
I
fun.
remember also too, like that was in 8th grade when we had like our 8th grade dance. That was one of the moves, the pepper grinder.
Oh, dang.
We were very weird.
I'm sorry. I would have loved to have been there for that. The pepper grinder. Nice. You could do that dance too at the same time, and like that's winning. You should. And then garlic. So if you don't like garlic, you can leave it out, but garlic's awesome, so you should add it. And I don't really have a fancy way of doing that. Ooh, there's like a super funky clove in here. Yeah, we won't use that one. I'm glad that happened now. Like, how are you supposed to know? Anyway.
This is definitely an ingredient you measure with your heart.
Yeah, for sure. So I have pulled out what looks like 3. Actually, that one's funky. You're welcome, guys. See, I'm just showing you real life stuff. We can problem solve. Luckily, the clove is big, so we can get some ones that aren't funky.
Now, also
We'll
too,
get
you know, fresh garlic, you could use like the pre-minced, and I always recommend that if you are using the pre-minced, totally fine. Just use a little bit extra because that flavor is not as potent.
Oh, that's a good tip. Sometimes in a pinch, I've used garlic powder,
Yeah, that too.
granulated garlic. I'm like, whatever, it's fine. It is fine. It's totally fine. Now, I will
Sometimes
always
it's dinner where it's like you're playing Chopped. It's like, what's in the mystery basket? What do I have on hand? So you just got to work with it.
do that every night in my house, like for real. What do I have that I don't have to go to the grocery store and buy? Uh, uh, and then I just add the cloves right into the tomatoes. And you'll see my technique. I basically hold like the little tip, not the root, and then I just pound it with my fist. So it's, you could do this many ways. You could use a cutting board in the back of a knife. You could do it in a much fancier way, but I like to beat things with the back of my hand, and that feels good. So that's what I did. This guy's a little funky. I don't know why. Of course, I had to pick like the funkiest garlic clove. So it was just a little weird there. So I'm just gonna, whatever. I'm sure he's fine. I could have eaten him, but we're playing it safe around here. So, 3, 500, whatever cloves you want in there. And some people will say you should stir that with a spoon, but I say you should stir that with your fingers. So
You have to get messy in the kitchen. When I do
Yes.
like in-person cooking classes and they don't want to touch the food, I'm like, we got to touch the food if we're cooking.
What is wrong with touching the food? There's nothing wrong because no spoon is ever going to be able to coat your tomatoes or your garlic as lovingly or as thoroughly as your hands. So I'm all about it. All right. And if you've done that, you've done it right. You saw how hard that was. The only part that was hard was the part where we realized the garlic clove was a little funky and we still problem solved. So now this just goes right into your oven. I actually have a stone and a steel in my oven. So I'll probably put this on my stone and I'll just let it go. I don't even care about it right now. It's fine. It'll be fine. No matter what happens in there, it's fine. You can check on it probably in about 15 minutes or so, just to make sure things are fine. If you want more color, you can keep going. Just look every 5 minutes or so they don't become black and charred because you don't want to put that on your pizza. Okay. All right. Are we good? Any questions? Everybody's okay? Hanging in there? Feeling good?
If the people who are cooking along, are we all on the same page? Let's move to the next step. If not, just give us a heads up. I think we're good to go.
Yay. Okay. So we're going to make the dough. I'm going to put this right in the middle. There it is. Okay. Making the dough, there are 2 ways that I instruct in the book, but I'm going to show you kind of my hands-on method since Julie has agreed that getting our hands involved is approved, which I also approve of. So that's what we're going to do. If you have kids, this is a super great way to get them involved in helping you in the kitchen. I mean, I always need more help. So I'm also coming off a cold. So hold on one second. It's always fun to watch someone drink. Sorry about that, but I'm good for like 5 more seconds. It starts with, I'm using active dry yeast, and it's only a teaspoon. You actually don't need a ton of yeast. So the packet is too much. You only need about half a packet if you're buying a packet of yeast.
Interesting. I never even know how much is really in the packet. It's like I've never measured it.
I'm sorry. It's 2
So is
1/4
it better
teaspoons.
to get like the glass container so you can actually measure the amount that you need?
I love the glass container because all you do is you take what you need out of it, you cover it with the lid, you put the date on that you opened it, and you stick it back in your fridge. And then you just keep pulling from it when you need it.
How long will that jar last?
Oh my gosh, this is annoying.
You're good.
Should last about 6 months to a year.
Oh, okay.
And the way you can tell if it's still alive. So we'll do it here. And you can actually skip this step if you're using instant yeast. Even if you're using active dry yeast, a lot of times you can skip this step, but it's really fun to watch, so I don't skip it. A teaspoon of that active dry yeast. If it's a little over, that's totally fine. If it's a little under, it's totally fine. Everything's going to work out okay. So don't stress too hard about the amount of yeast you've added in there. Now, yeast needs, this is terrible. I should not be allowed to have a cold.
So does anyone know what yeast needs to help it grow
Thanks,
or
Julie.
help it eat?
Goodness.
Bueller?
Aaron's like,
Some sort of sugar.
Yes, it needs sugar. And this is honey. And you can actually use sugar, but I've actually really enjoyed making my dough with honey. So if you don't have honey, totally fine. This is about a teaspoon. You could use sugar in its place. You can also use agave, you can use coconut sugar, anything that is sugar will work. So you need the sugar in here, and then a little splash of water. I usually start with like a 1/4 cup of the water that I'm using for the entire recipe. It only takes 1 cup of water. So I usually do that, and then I'll give it a stir just to kind of get everything working together. And you don't even have to let the sugar dissolve unless you want to. There's some sort of satisfaction in kind of stirring that until it's dissolved. So I understand you if you want to keep stirring. But what you'll notice after about 5 minutes, which we'll patiently sort of wait for, you'll notice that hopefully it'll start to bubble and it'll start to foam up. And if it does that, that means your yeast is good. It's alive and it's ready for you to use. If you notice that it's not bubbling or doing any movement in the bowl, like no foam, nothing, it looks the same as when you stirred it, then your yeast is dead. RIP, buddy. You were probably lovely at one point, but you have failed to be alive. So you need to say goodbye, bury it somewhere, or put it in your compost, whatever's easiest.
You're added to your shopping list that you need more yeast.
Yes. Then you need to go get more yeast. The chances are, though, if you've purchased it recently or within the past few months, it's probably fine. So you're probably good to go. But yes, if it's old, you don't want to keep it. So you can actually see already, maybe you can, but it's starting to get a little bit of action. There's a little bit of movement in here. So the yeast is basically consuming that sugar, and it needs that sugar because it's going to eventually use it to help create all those beautiful bubbles in your pizza dough and give it that gorgeous color. So we need that yeast to feed on that sugar. We'll pretend it's been 5 minutes and we're seeing all this bubbling. Now I just bought my yeast, so I know it's fine. So we're not too worried about it. At this point, it just gets easy and more fun. You add your flour. So I'm using all-purpose flour. Some people will be like, oh my gosh, why aren't you using fancy Italian 00 flour? That's because that flour is actually designed for higher temperatures than what your oven can do. So the 00 flour is for those ovens that can reach 700, 800 degrees Fahrenheit. They're not for your cute little conventional oven. So if you buy them, it's fine. It's really not gonna make any difference though for your pizza. So they are more
Also, too,
expensive.
you don't find that at your regular grocery store all the time.
No, you really can't. Like sometimes you have to special order and that's even, don't do that to yourself. So you can use all-purpose flour. You can even use a blend of all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour. You can use bread flour, any combination of those flours, good to go. So my recipe is 360 grams of flour. If you choose to use whole wheat, you can use a little bit less, especially if you're using all whole wheat, which I actually don't recommend because it's a little much and that dough is hard to work with. So I recommend like a 50-50 split between the two if you want to use whole wheat or some whole grain flour. You pour it right into the bowl. It was hard. Did you guys see how hard that was? Super hard. I measured it already, and that leads me to my next tip, which is to buy a scale. And at some point you might think, what a wasted investment. And I will say that's false because as Julie has probably said in previous classes, when you're baking, it is so helpful to have a scale because you can literally measure everything into one bowl instead of busting out all of your different cups and spoons and dirtying them and wishing they were still around. Plus, it just gives you a little bit more relaxation because everything's measured. You don't have to worry about, did I pack it too much? Did I pack it too loose? There's no guessing, I guess is what I'm saying.
Especially for baking. It's so easy to like those little errors like that, like over like packing your flour or there's a pocket of air in there, you're not getting enough. And
Right.
that's a good reminder too, like you're not taking out all your measuring spoons and measuring cups. You can just continuously add to your bowl.
Yeah, it's so much easier that way. And I hate doing dishes. So any way that I can get around doing more dishes, I'm gonna do that. So you should do. So again, when they're not that much, it's like 20 bucks. Come on, you got that. Especially if you're gonna make pizza a lot, you should invest in one. Plus it's fun. You might not know when you need it. Like I've used it to measure when I'm shipping something through the mail at the post office. So I
Yeah,
mean, that's
there you go. Multi-use.
yeah, right? Like I'm like, oh good, I have a skill for that. Then this is 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. So it's kind of handy. It's 1 teaspoon of yeast and 1 teaspoon of salt. Yeah, see, it's nice. It's handy. It's helpful. And then I always add some oil. I use at least 1 tablespoon. The reason being, it helps with the stretchability and the softness of the dough. So a lot of people struggle because they try to pull the dough and the dough tears or the dough doesn't come out as soft and nice as they like it. Well, if you add even just a little bit of oil, it helps with all those things. So it helps take the frustration for sure when it comes time to stretching your dough. So I always recommend adding at least a tablespoon. Okay, you see I'm just dumping things in bowls. It's great. Then it's water. Like I said, it's 1 cup. I've already used a quarter of that cup to bloom the yeast in the bowl. And
Does it matter
now,
the temperature of the water? Because there's so many recipes where it has to be like an exact temperature.
I mean, ideally you use that 105 degree. I never tempt my water because essentially you're going to end up resting this at room temperature and folding it a few times. So the temperature doesn't matter as much. If you use warm tap water, you're fine. So here, not a big deal. Good question though. So now I take a spoon from my drawer. It's not a fancy spoon. It's just, a usual spoon. And I stir until I get to a point where stirring is uncomfortably unfun. We're having fun, right? At some point, you'll be like stirring this and you'll say, that's not fun anymore. I don't want to stir that anymore. And like, see this? I'm getting to that point where it's like, I mean, I can't really stir that, right? And some of the flour is still not worked in, but that's okay. So I'm going to actually stop and I'm going to take all the dough off my spoon. And
We
then
do have a
I'm going,
question in the chat. Do you have any
yeah,
recommendations of a good scale to purchase?
good question. So when I was in culinary school, this wasn't the scale I had, but it was the same brand. So this is a Scali, which is an Italian brand. Maybe it's better if I hold it here. I like this
Find
one
it
because,
online.
but yeah, I got it. You can get it on Amazon. I like it because it's flat. So you can put a lot of stuff on it and it's easy to clean. So I like this one. It's also very thin. So I just shove it in with my cutting boards.
I found it.
And it's super easy. So good
All
question.
right, I'm gonna drop the link into the chat right now.
Nice. Thanks, Julie. Okay. So you've got your bowl of like fluffy stuff that doesn't look like anything special. And that's perfect. That's exactly what you want. You're going to cover it with a towel. This one looks dirty because I used it to wipe my hands just a second ago. I don't just have dirty towels that I use.
I
Don't
mean, at
judge.
home, in your home kitchen, use whatever towels you have. It's fine.
I have lots of those, but I don't use them to cover my pizza dough. So this is what it looks like after it's, what you're doing here, I should go back to it, is you're just letting the dough sit. Flour is kind of a turd, for lack of a better word. It doesn't like being played with a lot. It has an opinion about things and it needs to
Because what
rest.
happens when you overwork it?
So yeah, when you overwork it, basically what you're doing, there are proteins inside of wheat flour, gluten. Okay, you've probably heard that, I'm sure. And what happens is you're working those strands of protein and you're building like this little cool matrix. Everything's trying to combine and get tight and build structure. And unfortunately, that process kind of has to go at a slow pace because once you've built up a little bit of the structure, it gets firm and it won't let you do anything else with it. You need it to give it some time to relax. And once you've given it some time to relax, you can go back to it, add more structure to it, which is what I'm going to show you. And then you can keep building that way. But in order to get the structure, you have to knead it a little bit, which is what this all becomes. So you got to work those proteins with patience.
So this is interesting because I've always like totally kneaded it first and then let it rest. So you're recommending just stir it, just incorporate it, let it rest
Yep.
for a little bit.
Well,
Cool.
so I failed to mention also is that that also gives the flour time to absorb the water and the oil. So if you start working it right away, like if I brought this back, like I'm gonna be able to get the flour in here and stuff, but not fully because it's so dry. It just needs time to sit and absorb that water. And when you cover it, that doesn't allow any air to penetrate and dry it out further. So letting it sit just makes it easier for you to do the next step, which look, I'll show you. So I just did this before we got on, but now you'll see like it's so much easier. It's much wetter than if it would be had I just tried to do it right away.
Wow, yeah.
Okay. So
That's a
I'm
really good
aiming.
tip. Pizza guru.
Yeah, well, took some time. You'll even notice you're like, oh, it's a little sticky.
We have a
And
comment in the chat. I routinely struggle with overstretching the dough if I haven't made pizza in a while, especially if I'm using any amount of whole wheat. So, do you find it a little bit more difficult with whole wheat?
um, so there's a solution to every problem with pizza, which is what makes it such a beautiful thing. I think if you're using whole wheat flour, and which I didn't mention before, is you have to adjust for what's going on with your weather. So even though I'm telling you you need 1 cup of flour or 1 cup of water and it's this many grams of flour, you need to play around. Like in Chicago right now, it's not super humid. Whereas like a couple weeks ago, it was really humid. So my 1 cup of water was almost like too much. Now that was fine because I knew that was going to happen and I could just add more flour. Same if it's too dry, you just add a little bit more water. I think there's this fear where you have to stick to the recipe or you're going to screw it up. But you should get comfortable with making the dough to know like this looks too dry. I'm going to add a little bit of water and you'll do that, or I'm going to add a little bit of flour. I'm going to work it in a little bit and then I'm going to cover it like this and I'm going to let it sit for like 15, 20 minutes. And then you should be good. You should be good to go. If you come back and it's still looking one way, we'll just do it again. It's not a pain, sure, maybe it is, but if you make it often, you'll get all the tricks and tips and you'll be able to understand and see, where you're going astray. And I think that's
Why
kind of
everyone should do Pizza Fridays, so you're constantly doing it, and then
right.
you'll never have any problems.
Yes, you won't. And you'll be like, yay, you'll know exactly what you're looking for. And if the thing's not right, you'll be totally fine. So let me show you. So all you're doing that time is kind of just gathering it into a ball. Now you could do what Julie said and kind of skip the whole like letting it rest. But I've found that if I let it rest a little bit and absorb that water, it's gonna be easier for you to work with. So let's just take,
Well,
and
that
this
looks
is a
cute.
dough ball I already made. Let's take half of it for now. So my recipe makes two 10-inch pizzas, just so you know. So once your dough is rested, believe it or not, it's gonna look cute and floppy and perfect like this. And the no knead portion of the program goes like this. You'll take your ball from the bowl and you're going to take it and you're going to kind of flop it and pull it against your cutting or against your work surface. Then you're going to fold it over to the center and then you're going to turn it, or you can leave it, whatever, and you're going to flop it again, only
Hmm.
from opposite sides.
So no rolling pins are
No
going
rolling
to
pins.
be featured here.
Nope. And then you fold it again. And then you flip it over and then you just sort of roll it into a ball. So this takes some time to learn how to do. If you don't want to, like, all I'm doing is pulling and dragging the dough ball towards me to make that into a ball, which is fun and very cathartic. So if you
What happens if it starts sticking for any reason?
if it starts sticking, then your dough is too wet, right? So the solution is flour. You can toss a little bench flour down and add that as you're rolling this into a ball. If it's super sticky, moisture is actually a good thing. You don't want your dough to be super dry. So if it's not overly sticking, that's okay. That's actually great. If it's sticking to your hands and that's annoying to you, I always have like some sort of pan spray nearby so I can spray my hands, or you can use olive oil or even water, which might hydrate your dough a little too much. And then I use that so it doesn't stick as much. And then that's all you have to do. And then you want to cover this ball of dough and let him sit for 20 minutes. And then you're going to do that exact same process at least one more time. And then at that point, you can either refrigerate the dough, freeze the dough, or use the dough. How's that?
What are your tips for refrigerating and freezing so it will stay?
So I love these little, like, what do you call these, Julie?
Tupperwares?
They're like little rondo, like, that's not a rondo.
Oh, you're going fancy chef talk. I'm just going Tupperware.
Sure. A round Tupperware to put your
With the lid.
ball dough in, and I coat it with oil or pan spray, cover it for sure, and then stick it in the refrigerator. You could also, my other favorite way is putting it into a plastic bag, a resealable plastic bag, coating it with pan spray, sticking it in your refrigerator, and then when it comes time to bake it or pull it out, you just literally push it out of the bag.
Is there a certain amount of time you can keep it in the refrigerator as you're having a coughing attack?
So stupid. I can't believe it. Of course, like the timing is perfect. Yes, no more than 3 days in your refrigerator. Anything past that, it just starts to
Will it
ruin.
like overflow and overproof?
Goodness, Julie, I'm so sorry. No. What will happen is your dough will start to lose color because your yeast. This is so unfortunate.
So Sarah had a little bit of a cold previously, so just
Sorry.
FYI. And this is great. Everyone's cooking in their own kitchen, so no germs are being passed. So we're all good.
Right, I'm not making you sick. I'm on like the aftermath. If you've ever had a cold, like the end of it where it's like just obnoxious. Anyway, this is real. So what happens is if it's there too long, the yeast has consumed all the sugar, which is bad. Then it has nothing left to do. And so what happens is you're going to lose the color. So you're not going to get a brown crust. You're going to lose all that beautiful pockets of air, which made it look so beautiful before. So anything past 3 days, you're going to have an issue with color and the rise of your crust. I'm going to check on my tomatoes. If you have tomatoes going, you can check on them too. I just remember them. There they are. Look how pretty.
Ooh.
And if you are making them, you know how good it smells right now. I usually give them a stir at this point. And you can also judge. Like I want to go just a teeny bit longer because I like mine to really pop and be kind of brown. So I'm going to throw mine back in, but a good little stir kind of just recoats everything in the oil. And that's all you have to do. So a little stir, and then we'll pop those guys back in, and then we'll work with our dough. I think my coughing fits over, so that is exciting. Okay. So we'll leave that guy. He's just gonna hang out. I'm gonna have lots of pizza here later. All right, so then your other ball of dough, we're gonna shape. So there are a few ways to shape. The easiest way is to let gravity help you. Now, I should mention before we start shaping and doing all the things, I have, you're like, what does she have? I have a pizza peel. I don't know if you guys have one of these, but this is also another thing that I would recommend purchasing. It just makes it easy for you to get pizza in the oven and out of the oven. You can also use a baking sheet flipped over. So all good.
Oh, interesting.
If you have a baking sheet, you're set. Okay.
Do
The
you
other thing
prefer the wooden peels or, well, you have a wooden one, but what's the pros and cons of like a metal one?
So a metal one will usually give you a finer edge, which makes it pretty easy to launch and stuff, but I find them cumbersome, and the wooden ones are fun for serving too, like they won't get hot. So I'll never cut on this, but I can grab my pizza, put it to a cutting board, cut it, and then put it back on, and then take it right to the table. A steel will be hot, and you'll have to end up, and usually those are longer handled, so I mean, you're not going to put that on a table unless you have a huge table. And that's what you want to do. Then you should do that for sure. But I just prefer the wooden one. Now, I use parchment paper. Here, move this out of the way. For all my pizzas. Now, some people would say that's a really bad idea, and they could be right. But I have found that most parchment paper has been safe in my oven, and I have a gas oven up to that 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I have never once, knock on wood, set anything on fire. You do you though. If that makes you uncomfortable, you can actually launch your pizza directly onto that steel or that stone, no problem. But I find this just to be a little bit of insurance. And if you know me, I'm klutzy, so I like insurance. That feels good.
Also
so
easier cleanup.
What?
Also easier cleanup with parchment. I love parchment.
I know too. Like it's a magical thing. I use it probably more than any human should. And I'll build my pizza right on the peel. That makes it even easier. I'll also throw down a little cornmeal and flour, just a little mixture, just on the bottom. I forgot the cornmeal and it's in my pantry. I'm not going to waste your time and go get that. But I would put that down. If you don't put it down, it's going to be okay too. I just like it because it provides a little texture. And if you're not using the parchment, it helps your pizza release more easily from your peel. Okay, now you're ready for your dough. So you want it to be room temperature. So if you've refrigerated it or frozen, or it's been freezing, you need to set it out about at the same time you take your pizza out of the oven so it gets to room temperature, because cold dough is kind of like dough that's been worked too much. It won't stretch, it won't pull, it'll just make you mad, and we're having fun. So no madness. That's not good.
We have one question about the cornmeal. Is the cornmeal and flour mixture similar to like a semolina? Can you use that instead?
You can use semolina. Yep. It's more like, I think they call it like ball bearings, right? So it's just like a little bit of texture, a little bit of something between you and the pizza, or the pizza and the peel, so that it makes it can move a little bit better. I also like it because it adds a little texture to the pizza itself. So, but yeah, semolina is totally fine.
And one more comment back to this, the peels. There's a comment saying liking the wooden one for prepping and launching and a steel for removing. Might be easier because it has that like thinner lip. So if you have both, maybe be your technique.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if you've got it, surely use it. I just have the wooden ones, and once I had a wooden one, I was like, I don't need anything else. This is fine. I liked it. So you do you, whatever works best for you. Like I said, I've also used a baking sheet. And I've also pulled, well, since I use parchment, I've also just taken my cutting board and gone to my oven and just pulled the parchment right from the oven onto my cutting board. So
Nice.
if there's a will, there's a way. If you want to eat pizza, you're gonna find a way to get it from point A to point B, right? Like, and you got to just be smart about it. Flat surface, right? Um, okay. Room temperature dough. It's easiest if it's shaped into a ball. So if you have a few seconds before you start making your pizza to shape it into a ball of some sort, that'll just be easier for making a round pizza. If you don't care about the shape of your pizza, then don't worry about fussing with it. Okay, so at this point, what I like to show people is that you should just use gravity. So it's probably better to look at me with the head on camera to get your dough shaped. All you have to do is hold your dough and just kind of like hold it around the edges and let it fall as you kind of shake it a little bit and let it go. And you'll see it starts to get bigger. All those gluten strands that you worked up are relaxed, so they're totally ready for this. And then you'll notice, and maybe you probably can't tell, but in the middle of my dough is actually pretty thick right here. So if that happens to you, you take your fists, both hands, and you just stretch it out in the middle. So you can just take your fists, pull it a little bit, and don't be scared. You can absolutely fill any crack or crevice with pizza dough. So look, I made one, no big deal. You can just pinch it
That's
back
what I was
together.
gonna ask. What happens if you do stretch a little too hard and you have a little hole there?
You just pinch it.
Pinch it?
Yep. Then you're good to go. Don't worry about it. If you stress about that, then oh my gosh, that's not good. Don't worry about that. And then you can keep going. So if you notice like, okay, my middle is all stretched out, I can just keep going. And even if you tear a hole at this point, like, look, there's a hole, all good. I'm gonna pinch that puppy back together when I set it down. So remember, this is gonna be like a 10-inch pizza dough. So we're pretty close. Look, I still have a hole. I can see you through it. I'm not stressed though. Do you see how unstressed I am? You can throw it on your parchment. And actually, let me get, oh, I don't even have it either. Hold on. Let me get a little flour. Okay.
So that makes me feel so much better because like I feel like everyone's like, you have to toss it in the air if you're gonna really get it. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna drop it.
You can totally toss it in the air. If you drop it, it's fine. You just have to let it rest. Because you probably worked it too much to let it stretch out again. Totally fine, Julie. Keep practicing. You'll get it. You use that same technique with the backs of your hands. You just turn your wrists, trust yourself, let it go. So
I mean, we do have expert tossing picture of you here. I'm gonna drop it
yeah.
in the chat.
I mean, I've definitely done it a few times. I've tossed it. But see, look, I floured my fingertips a little bit. Let me move that over a little bit. And then I just sealed that gap. And no one's gonna know it's there. Haven't you ever made pie, Julie? You made pie. And you're like,
Yeah. Yeah,
oh,
you
no.
find all the little ones and you just plop it on.
Yeah, you just seal it. So it's not, it's going to spill out apples or cherries or whatever. All good. So then now this is like even easier. Once you've floured your fingertips, you can literally just sort of push your pizza dough into the shape you want it to be. I like to give mine a little bit of a lip, and that's all you do. Look at that. See?
Yeah, like I am a big crust. I love the crust. And some of your pictures that in your book, like the crust, let me find a good one, is like looks amazing. Oh, like
Oh,
look at this one. Like, I don't know if you can see in my camera. That
yeah.
one, oh,
Be patient
like
with your
everything looks so good.
I will say that the longer, like if you can let your dough refrigerate at least overnight, 2 or 3 days even, it'll taste and look like a pizzeria pizza. So I never really encourage people to make same day pizza. I just don't, it's not going to be, it's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. It's just not going to be as good. So you might as well just like make it the day before. It doesn't even like need a lot of attention from you. You just let it sit in the refrigerator. I even have a recipe in the book that's using this KitchenAid stand mixer. So if you want to not mess with the hands-on approach, that's all non-hands approach and even easier. So you can use that one and throw it in your refrigerator. Next day, you're ready to make pizza. It's way better.
Would you
Oh,
recommend if you use your stand mixer, can you just leave it in like the mixing bowl or should you transfer it to a different container? It's
um,
like the Tupperware container?
I so I never leave mine in there because I always want to use my bowl for something else because I just am always using it. I also don't like that mine doesn't have a lid,
Mm.
so I don't like it for that reason. But you could, and you could cover it with saran wrap
I'm just
or
wondering if it would like stick to the sides too much.
so you
Like if
should
you
probably,
just mix it and then just let it sit.
yeah, I wouldn't do that. I would probably
Okay.
take it out and
Noted.
spray it, the bowl with
Okay.
either oil or some sort of nonstick cooking spray, and then cover it and put it in the fridge. And also, to be honest, I have done that, but have you experienced Joe that has been stuck to your bowl that has also been refrigerated?
Yeah. And then it's like crusty.
It is like
Yeah.
you have to let that bowl soak like all day
Yeah.
before it
Not
comes off. It's like a nightmare. You're just like, go
fun.
away, and it will never go away. It's the worst, and my husband can't take it, so I try not to do that. That's why the plastic bag works. It's not good for the environment. I try to reuse them. Or you could use one of those fancy reusable bags, right?
Oh, like those
Whatever.
stasher bags. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those. I
Oh,
have
those
those.
look good.
Yeah. So see, by the time we're ready to eat this puppy, he's all good. So, and at this point, you can decide, do I want whole pieces of garlic? The answer is always yes for me. But if you don't want those big chunks of garlic, you can absolutely leave them out. I also like to kind of like smash them a little bit, see how it makes kind of like a yummy little paste, and then toss the tomatoes in that kind of pasty goodness. So I will do that. Then everybody
Are we
can,
leaving that extra olive oil behind or are we going to use
heck
it?
no, no way. We're
Okay.
gonna put that on there. If it's
Because I'm sure
excessive,
that's so garlicky and delicious.
yeah, if you feel like it's excessive and more tomato juice versus oil, then maybe don't put it on because you're just gonna weigh your pizza down and that could be tragic. Because
Oh,
you
true. You
don't,
don't want a soggy. Does anyone watch Great British Bake Off? You do not
oh,
want a soggy bottom.
uh-oh, what happened? Something bad?
It's when like your pie, it's usually for pies, but usually when there's like too much moisture and the pie dough in the bottom. I don't have a good British accent, but they always say like a soggy bottom. It's always funny.
I love it. All right, hold on, I gotta get my mozzarella. I'm having so much fun talking. I'm gonna get all the ingredients. All right, hold on. All right, you could use whatever mozzarella cheese you want. I don't care. Whatever is your favorite. I'm gonna use these little cubes because like how fun are they? I don't know. They're so fun. Fresh mozzarella.
Oh my
You could
God,
use
yeah.
shredded stuff. I don't prefer that. Not the pre-shredded at least, but because they usually add some sort of ingredient in there that keeps it from clumping, which kind of affects meltability. So I choose to not. But
So tip here would be buy a block and shred it yourself.
you got it. Is that a pain? Of course. Could you just buy
Well,
pre-shredded? You could. Like
my
it's
big tip for that is use your, if you have a food processor with like a shredder,
oh yeah.
but do it right in that and then it's fine.
I
Instead of
love
sitting there
that.
like, because it's usually a little bit more moist and then it gets stuck in there. And so if you just put it right in your food processor, it will
Yes.
just go right there.
Genius. Love it. That's it. We're gonna throw it in the oven, or I am, and you should too if you're making it. And then we're gonna answer all your questions while it cooks, if you have any. So mine's on the top. Just threw it in, and then I made a loud sound. There we go.
I have a question about the soggy bottoms.
Oh, let's talk.
If the mozzarella is too wet, sometimes it will
Mhm.
create the soggy bottom. Is yours dry or anything special with the mozzarella?
Normally I would pat mine off, but for the sake of time, I just threw them right on to the pizza.
But do you recommend like a low moisture mozzarella for
Oh,
pizza?
yes, yes. A low moisture is definitely good. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you're using high moisture toppings. And in fact, let's go back to toppings because that's something that I think people maybe don't recognize. But like if you go to an Italian pizzeria where they make like legit pizza, you'll notice that there are like 4 peppers on it or like 3 slices of pepperoni. That's because their crust is so thin and they know that adding too much in the way of toppings is going to create too wet of an environment for your pizza to crisp up in the middle. So I always kind of err on the side of fewer toppings and let the crust do all the talking. So, you know, a quarter cup is a safe bet for a 10-inch pizza. So if you want to go your own way, that's kind of what I recommend.
And I also find that like if you are doing the technique of preheating your oven first, your baking vessel is preheated, like that also helps with the process too. Because what people do is
Yeah.
they just take a cold pan, their dough, and they pop it in with all their wet toppings, and that's going to create that soggy bottom.
Yeah. And that's no fun. I mean, you can eat it. It's fine. It'll be
I
fine.
mean, it's still going to be delicious.
You're gonna love it, but but
So
yeah,
this is the time where I like to ask everyone, what is your favorite pizza topping?
good
Sarah, you go
question.
first.
Oh. How about you go first?
Mine is cheese, because obviously cheese is going to be on your pizza, most likely.
Ooh, I love that answer because I mean, if I could answer what my favorite part of pizza is, it would
Okay, you
probably.
can answer that one. You're changing the question, but you answered that
I
one.
know.
Everyone else answer your
Okay.
top.
Okay, I'll answer both. I made my own plus enough. Okay, I would say my favorite thing is the pizza crust, at
Oh yeah,
100%. And then I would say my favorite topping is probably, ugh, it's probably tomatoes. It probably is. I
like fresh
just
tomatoes, not like a tomato sauce.
know a fresh tomato, like a really good summer tomato, a New Jersey
Yes, a New Jersey tomato.
tomato.
I'm gonna go mushroom for mine. I like
Okay.
so we make what I told you guys, we make pizza all the time. And lately what I've been doing is I'll do mushroom onion with balsamic as a
Ooh,
combination of a topping.
yes,
Gary
please.
said mushrooms, agreed the crust and bacon as a favorite topping. I love the addition
Ooh,
of bacon.
mm,
And now
okay.
we have to ask everyone the most controversial question of pizza. Do
Oh,
you like pineapple on your pizza?
I want to hear anything else. You have to answer, by the way. Just do it. It's
Me?
okay. Yeah.
Or yeah. So Jill said
And everyone.
yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, pineapple usually is paired with ham, and I'm
Mm,
not a big ham fan, so I usually don't gravitate towards that pizza. So I have nothing against it. It's just not the flavor profile that I typically go for. And Jill just said that it's good with bacon too, so I might have to try that because I do like bacon.
yeah. I'm a huge fan. I will eat pineapple all day on pizza. With ham, without ham, bacon, without bacon, with jalapeno. In fact, that's the one I have in the book. So it's ham and jalapeno
Guys,
pepper.
there's even a breakfast pizza in here. When I tell you, like, you will have a pizza for every sort of craving that you have. Like, it will
Yeah.
be in this book. Oh, I just passed the one that I also love too. Wait, let me find it again.
Yeah. There's also dessert pizzas in there.
Dessert pizza.
I mean, that's a stretch. Is it a pizza? Maybe not, but who cares? It's dessert. It's still there.
And this is a really, of course, I'm not going to be able to find it now, but like, this is a really good trend because in Virtual Teaching Kitchen, we talk about how to balance our plate and how to make things healthy. And people have this misconception that pizza is not healthy. Pair it
Right.
with a delicious salad, your veggies on top. And the one recipe in this book is a bed of like arugula on top. You can have your salad on top of your pizza.
Yeah, I
That's a
actually
nice
have
balance
salad
meal.
pizzas in the book. So there
Yeah.
are salads where you just make the dough and then you pile a salad on top of it. And it's delicious. Like my family eats it. That's proof.
Jill
As far
also
as
said
I'm concerned.
pesto pizza with chicken. Yeah, that's always a winner.
Yeah, there's something for everyone. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that you should just, even though I have all these suggestions, like you know what you like. So why not just make what you like? You know, I've got ideas for when you're bored with what you like or for when you need something new or you're having guests. But, you know, if you like pepperoni, well, put pepperoni on your pizza, put black olives, do all the things you love, or experiment. Try new stuff that maybe you haven't tried before or you've seen somewhere and you thought you'd like to try it. Like there's no harm done here, you know?
And
I
like
think
this
experiment
recipe,
great.
so simple. You use fresh tomatoes. You don't have to use like a tomato sauce. You don't have to make a tomato sauce. You don't have to buy a jarred
Oh,
tomato sauce.
yeah.
You can use fresh produce or even I've done like, oh, actually, I haven't done it yet, but it's on my list. I saw on TikTok someone used was that Bourgeon cheese? What is it
Oh
called?
yeah. Yeah.
As a spread on the bottom of the crust and put like
Okay.
slices of zucchini.
Oh,
I might try that.
that sounds good. Exactly. Stuff like that. Like you love those things. Well, why not try it on
As a
pizza?
pizza.
It's probably delicious. You know, like shrimp on pizza. I didn't have shrimp on pizza until I worked in a pizzeria and I was like, shrimp on pizza. And this was like when I was in high school. And then it blew my mind. I was like, well, of course, shrimp on pizza. That's so tasty. Like I can't even imagine life without shrimp on my pizza. So, but we got a few more minutes. Until I can pull it out.
Okay, so this is your time, all the participants, to ask any questions to show us how your pizza creations are coming out, what step you're on, anything you guys want to talk about. As you know, both Sarah and I are both chefs and dietitians, so we're here to answer your culinary and nutrition questions for you.
Yeah, don't
And
be
if you don't
shy.
want to ask questions, we're just going to continue to ramble together.
We are. So you might want to ask a question.
So also a question for you. Did you get that shirt made or did you find that shirt?
I did. Well, I tried to find a shirt. You think it'd be easy,
I
but
know,
apparently
everyone loves pizza.
I'm pretty picky about what the shirt looks like. So there's actually a super cool place in Chicago called the Jelly, the T-shirt Deli. And I legit have a crush on this store because it looks like a deli. You go in and there's a deli case, they have like the board menu. They'll wrap your shirt in sandwich paper and put it in a bag with chips and like a little receipt that looks like, like a diner would have written on it. Um, it's the cutest place. And I reached out to them because I had another shirt made for something else. And I said, I just want a pizza t-shirt. Can you help me? And the one lady responded like right away and she had this design and I was like, what have you
Done.
been on? That's exactly what I want. Perfect. And she made it the exact same day. And I was like, brilliant. And it's local and I loved it. So yeah, I had it made. That's the
We
long
have a
story.
question. What is
Yeah.
your favorite regional variations on pizza? So like New York style, New Haven style, Chicago, Quad Cities. So I would love everyone to answer this. I'm obviously gonna say New York style because I'm New Jersey, New York. That's our jam. But I'm happy to hear everyone else's because you make a lot of pizzas. Like, what is your opinion
Yeah.
about like the deep dish versus like
Mm. I
everything
will
else?
say that. So there are a lot of great places here that do deep dish awesome. I like the ones that make it less cheesy, more dough. So if you've learned, I really like dough. So I even have a recipe for it. I call it double the dough. So it's kind of like a Chicago style deep dish. You make it in a cast iron pan. It's super easy. It's like dumb easy. So if you like all the dough, that's a good one for you. I don't like here. Sometimes they put like so much cheese and I feel like I'm just eating cheese and I don't like that. So there are a couple places by me that make a deep dish. So I do like deep dish. I don't necessarily like Chicago style deep dish, but I like deep dish. And I love Detroit style pizza. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
What
So
about everyone else? What are your
what
thoughts?
do you guys like?
And then we have another question coming in. If you guys want to just add to that conversation in the chat. But does Sarah have any advice on what she uses to clean countertops that will be used for that stretching process?
Clean counter to use,
So
wait,
does
what?
Sarah have any advice on what she uses to clean countertops that will be used
Oh,
for that stretching process?
that's a good question. I use soapy water. That's all I use. So I have a granite countertop. I feel like it's super ugly and I can't wait to replace it. But and I'm going to. But I just use hot water, hot soapy water. And I have a bench scraper, like a flexible one that I use to kind of get, if there's stuff that's stuck on, I'll use that to scrape along my countertop to get that off first. And I'll just put that in the trash and then I'll just get my hot soapy water. That's all I use. I find it works pretty well. If you don't want to use your countertop, I also have used like a cutting board as my work surface. You can also use a really big baking sheet too. If you're like, I don't want to get that on my countertop, I understand. But you can just use one of those too. Those work really well.
So we have a
Just so you
comment about types of pizzas, so Neapolitan or sourdough, but I still need
Ooh,
to try a New Haven. So if this is sorry if this is a dumb question, but what is a New Haven pizza?
yeah, what is that? I feel like I should know. I don't even
I
know.
know.
I want it because I love all pizza, mostly.
So tell us what a New Haven pizza is. What's different about it?
Tell us, we need to know. My pizza's almost
How's your
done.
pizza looking?
It's good. I turned the broil on, which is something I forgot to mention. If you have like I have it, I don't know if you can see it. Probably
Mhm.
not. It's on the top here. During the last couple minutes, if you want to get some extra like char on the crust or extra meltiness on the cheese, you can flip it to broil. Keep an eye on it, of course. And then that'll finish, you can finish it off that way. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm probably gonna go in here and just sort of flip it around a bit. Um, but yeah, what's New Haven pizza?
So Stacy Googled it and she says it's super saucy looking, but then we mostly
Oh.
have Neapolitan inspired, but a thin, cold fired, and relatively overcooked style. So if you like it a little more overdone, interesting, interesting.
Oh, well, that can be
That's
yummy.
another thing. Like, I don't love my pizza like super saucy. My husband will add sauce like on top of the toppings, like add more sauce. I'm like, that's too much, too saucy for me.
You got overboard. All right, we're just gonna pull Bubby out for the sake of time.
All right, let's
Yeah.
watch this technique, this skill right here. Shoop. I feel like you have to make that noise.
Oh, that was
Shoop.
nice. Zoop. There she is.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
Oh, look at her. She beauty. So I have a sad basil plant here. Isn't he sad? He's sad, but he's still
It's just
kicking.
being used, not sad.
So we're just gonna drop little pieces of basil. I love him because he gives me little leaves. He's so cute. And so
And that's
that's all
like picture perfect.
right? Well, like you saw how easy it is. It's not even hard. You just make everybody think it's hard. And then they're like, oh my gosh. And you get to get all the credit for all the work you did, which wasn't too much.
If you are cooking along, I definitely want to see your pizza. Or if it's not ready, it's totally fine. But if you want to share on social media, make sure you're tagging Virtual Teaching Kitchen and Sarah's. I'm going to drop her Instagram again in the chat so we can see it. And if you want to use the hashtag made with VTK, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, do all the things. Get credit
Is
for it.
anyone willing to share theirs? I want to see. I want to see.
They're getting camera shy. Maybe it takes a minute. It might be working hard. Again, you can throw on the broil at the end, and then you can just decide how far you want to go. Like I probably would have gone a little bit longer on that boy, but I wanted to just pull it out so you guys could see what it looked like. But it's totally up to you. You know, maybe you like it a little blonde is what we call that, and that's fine. But it's getting
And I
there.
just dropped the QR code again into the chat. So definitely get a copy of Pizza Pizza Pizza. And 3 participants today in class will be receiving a fun email saying that you want a copy. So look out for an email. Maybe it's going to be you.
Look out for the email for sure. You want a copy, or you can just buy one. That's cool too. That's all
So
good.
Amber's dough is still resting, but she's gonna make it tonight. My dough is still resting too, so I'm gonna finish off mine. I just want to say a big thank you for Sarah. I so appreciate you for coming on into our community to share all your pizza tips and your pizza recipe with us today. And again, I'm gonna plug your cookbook for you. Please go get this because I mean, just alone, the pictures are going to make you want to make every single recipe in this book.
Aw, you're the best, Julie. Well, this was so much fun. Thanks, everyone. And again, hit me up on Instagram. I'm happy to answer any questions. So if you feel like at one point you're riding the struggle bus, I'm here for you. I'll got you.
Yeah, any questions, send them our way. And
Yep.
we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining into Virtual Teaching Kitchen. And thanks again, Sarah. Happy eating your pizzas now. Bye,
I
guys.
know.